welcome to this time session. We have Juliana Strickland here, and she's going to be talking about your brain is not a box, getting
No, it isn't.
organized when you're neurodivergent. So I'm going to respect time, hand it over to Juliana, and take it away.
Awesome. So it's great to meet all of you. I'm Juliana Strickland. I'm going to share my screen in a minute. I have a bunch of slides just because I feel like everyone's a different kind of learner. That's the point of being here. So I know some people like to view things while other people are talking and have something to look at. So I made a presentation and I wanted to invite everyone, if you want to turn your screens on, go ahead. It's nice to feel like I'm talking to a group of you versus just kind of talking into the void. But again, no pressure. And I'm going to share a bunch of my links in the chat now. If you want to follow anything or get in touch later, we can share them again at the end. But I wanted to invite everyone to, if you have any questions as I'm talking, type them in the chat. If it makes sense to answer them while I'm talking, I will. If it's sort of like following the thread of where I'm going anyway. Otherwise, I am going to leave hopefully 15, 20 minutes at the end for questions and answers, because I feel like that is one of the best ways to sort of help each other learn about different organizing solutions, get some ideas, maybe, get some tips for your own space. So go ahead and chat them whenever you think about them, and then we'll get to that at the end. So, okay, without further ado, let me figure out how to share my screen. Okay. All right, and then I need to do presenter view. Okay. I don't think I can see the chat. So will you just let me know if there's any good questions? Is
Absolutely. We can
that
also
okay?
open the
Okay.
chat button if you see the little toolbar somewhere hovering on your screen
Yeah. Oh, here. Let's see.
in case you want the
Oh,
control.
I would like that. It's hard when you're like sharing everything. Oh,
I
wait,
know.
where did we get? We're at the end. Okay, here we go.
We'll keep an eye out and I'll try and chime in or let you know.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, I'm not super techie, so here we are.
Also, it can always be at the end in case we miss it.
Perfect. Great. All right. Hi, everyone. So nice to meet you. Today, we are talking about how your brain is not a box and some tips for getting organized when you're neurodivergent. I am Juliana Strickland. I live here in Los Angeles. I own a company called Space Camp Organizing, and we've been around since 2019, but I've been organizing for over a decade, about 12 years. And before that, I was a content creator and host, and I still do a little bit of that. Because when you're neurodivergent, it's fun to have lots of different careers and lots of different jobs. Um, I have ADHD. I was diagnosed in college, and but I'm also not to humble brag, but I'm really good at organizing, which it's good to be good at the thing that people pay you to do. And often I think people think that those two things don't go hand in hand. I mean, a lot of clients that are like, I have ADHD, so I can't be organized, which that can be true, but also there are ways to kind of harness the power of a neurodivergent brain and help it work for you to make your space work really efficiently, to make it really streamlined and to help you feel good in it. And it's sort of like a win-win when you can make that happen. So we're going to go through some tips, some strategies, and help you be successful at organizing if that's what you're looking for in your life. So, okay, so here's some questions. Like, does this sound like you, right? I've done thousands of consultations for people and I keep hearing the same thing. So I've been able to kind of distill this down to a list of questions. Like, and if you have your camera on, just raise a hand, right? You feel really creative as a human, maybe? And okay, so imagine you're in your own space and you see the potential in everything, right? So maybe you hang on to lots of little knickknacks. Maybe you hang on to lots of little craft supplies, like you have a few beads left after a project or a piece of felt or whatever. Maybe you hang on to a lot of ingredients, Lauren, a lot of ingredients because you're like, ooh, what if I want to make this or this or this? Clothes, mementos, gadgets, like the list goes on and on. But you see the potential in all these kinds of things because you have this super interesting, unique, creative brain. But then you have a hard time focusing when you don't have a clear space that helps sort of mimic the clear space you want in your brain to be able to be creative. So you're stuck in this dilemma where you're like, I feel surrounded by clutter. I can't get rid of any of it because I need it. Because what if I want to do this project with it? But also, I'm never going to start a project with it because my space feels like a huge cluttered mess. So I'm sort of just stuck in like making no decisions, right? I feel like that is such a common thing. And some people live their whole lives like this. And I really think that it's a lot of wasted potential. And it doesn't have to be like that. So we're going to solve these problems. How do I go to the next one? Okay. So a big thing that I have noticed is most commercial organizing advice is made for neurotypical brains. And I'm going to go through the top three that people really look at. There wasn't actually a lot of organizing advice other than Martha Stewart for, up until the last like 5, 6 years ago. But I feel like it's becoming a little bit more in the zeitgeist. And you probably have seen some things, and it is easy to not feel represented when you have a neurodivergent brain in this landscape. So the first big one, Marie Kondo. If you've read The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, maybe you love it, maybe you hate it, maybe you're somewhere in between. I am definitely somewhere in between. I love the sort of emotional component of it, like the idea of something sparking joy actually really resonates with me, but it's a little too minimalistic for me. I like to have my stuff. For some people, being too tied to emotions doesn't work because it's like, well, if you're feeling frustrated in your home, maybe nothing sparks joy. Or it's like, okay, well, maybe none of the kitchen tools you have spark joy, but then if you get rid of all of them, you'll have nothing to stir your eggs with. And that doesn't actually make any sense for you. So I think that it is a little bit too black and white for a lot of people. Also, if you're familiar with her show or any of her imagery or her writing, it can feel sterile, it can feel unrealistic, it can feel unattainable. It just only works for some people, but I would say that it doesn't work for most of the neurodivergent people that I know and most of my clients who sort of are in that sphere. And it ultimately, I think, can do more harm than good for people who don't resonate with it. Um, the next one, The Home Edit, you maybe have seen their books, you've seen their shows potentially. They have products at the Container Store, at Walmart, all kinds of stuff like that. There is some cool stuff there. I feel like they have made organizing kind of like cool and popular, which is great. They're kind of fun and funny. It's definitely a maximalist vibe though, which can resonate with a lot of people. But where I think that is problematic for some, they use a lot of plastic. So if you're into sustainability, if you're into sort of like a more earthy vibe, not going to work for you, especially when you're watching their show. You're going to be like, I don't want to fill my whole house with like $10,000 worth of plastic. And speaking of that, it's very expensive to buy a tiny plastic box to house each one of your rainbow items that you have in your whole home, right? So it doesn't really, I think, connect. They also are very into celebrities, which is fun to watch. But when, they're organizing a pantry that's the size of your entire apartment, you're going to kind of tune out and you're not going to be like, you're not going to feel like you can get much from that. So ultimately, I don't really think it can leave you feeling like a little worse when watching an organizing show. It should make you feel a little bit better. The third one that I wanted to highlight is one that's been around for a long time, which is hoarders. And for many years before all these other organizers came on the scene, when I would tell people that I did home organizing, people would be like, "Oh my God, is it like hoarders?" And I'd be like, "Well, sometimes, but not really." Like Hoarders is sensationalist for a reason. It's reality TV. It's like the Kardashians. It's like, anything like that. It's meant to be sensationalist. It's meant to be an extreme, and it doesn't accurately represent most people's spaces. So it can be fun to watch. There are spaces like this for sure. Everyone's on the spectrum of hoarding, right? It's like the same as everyone's on like a sexuality spectrum. Everyone's a little bit of a hoarder. Like I'm a hoarder of embroidery thread, but it doesn't mean that I can't walk to my kitchen and make myself a cup of coffee. So those are kind of like the three main things I feel like are represented. And I think that's problematic. So let me move this so I can see my own slide. So what's the solution, right? I've set up sort of here's the issue, but like how do we move past this? So I think that a couple things. One, we need to like regardless of how our brains work or think, we have to get out of this loop of indecision because again, it's like what I set up earlier. You are surrounded by clutter. You keep thinking, well, what if I need this? What if I need this? What if I need this? Then you have some like mental burnout and then you don't end up doing anything and then you live to have another day surrounded by clutter and sort of working fairly inefficiently and maybe not loving where you live. So I think we need to create systems that work with us, not against us. And that means being honest about how your brain works, being honest about what your goals are, and just starting. So let's talk about how to do that. So here's a few basics about how to approach organization when you're neurodivergent. So I want you to remember the golden rule that there is no one size fits all organizing solution, right? It's not like going to buy a pair of jeans, or I mean, even I guess buying a pair of jeans sucks because there's are also not one size fits all, but it needs to be very customized to you because your brain is your brain and you have your own set of needs, wants, limitations, all of that kind of stuff. But that's why this kind of organizing is so brilliant for anyone, but especially people who are neurodivergent because it actually like means when you can be honest with yourself about what you want and what you need, it actually makes everything really come to life. So no one size fits all. No feeling bad if your house doesn't look like Martha Stewart's. No trying to make it look perfect just like Pinterest. We're going to get rid of that. Second of all, oh, I guess I already said this one. It's like organizing always works best when it's customized to you, not to anyone else. So it's like not what your mom thinks your house needs to look like. It maybe is not even what your partner thinks your space needs to look like. Again, we can get to how to sometimes you do have to organize with whoever you live with in mind, of course, but the point is it's not about trying to fit into this box to fit into these societal norms of what organizing looks like. It's about helping you function and feel better in your home. The next thing is a little bit more practical. If you take nothing away from this but this, it's that like items need to live together. If you can start training your brain to think about categories and how like things can live together, and that can mean whatever you want it to mean, right? Maybe it means, yeah, like dishes live together, silverware lives together, but maybe it means everything I use in the first hour of my day lives together. So it's all in the same place. Like maybe you group things temporally, maybe you group things by person. Like there's 1,000 different ways that you can group things as long as it's helping you. So we're going to talk about the nitty gritty of that if that seems overwhelming. Um, so like items live together in categories, and then categories need a home. Ideally, in your home, every single thing you own has a category it lives in, and every category has a home. And like if I were to pick up anything, like here, I'm sitting at our desk, like I have a pop socket here that I've been playing with. Talk about being neurodivergent. Um, this goes with our like phone accessories, right? So I have a drawer in here where I have all kinds of technology and stuff. So I can put this away after I know where to find it again because it lives with like items and it has a home and a boundary. So those are sort of like some very basics, and we're going to get into more details. Okay, so how to get started. When you're looking to get organized, starting is always the hardest part because you can think your way out of it over and over and over again. Um, and you can try to like start in the perfect place. You're going to say like, well, like, you can have like 1,000 disaster scenarios of like, well, if I start here and then I do this wrong, then this is going to go wrong, then this is going to go wrong. Forget about that. It doesn't matter where you start. It's like a magical board game where you can start at the beginning, middle, and end, and you're still going to work your way all the way around because it's actually the key is just starting anywhere and getting into the flow. So turning on some fun music, having a friend come over, whatever it is, and just starting. Because it's also like you think about it's a daunting task to organize anything large, like whether it's your whole home, whether it's your whole kitchen, whether it's even your whole closet. But we organize every day. Like even dumping everything out of your purse, throwing away the trash, and then throwing everything else back in, that's organizing. That has cleared some space for you. That has made you go through a few things. That has probably cleared some space in your brain. And that's organizing. And then maybe you feel so good from that, then you're like, well, maybe I'll also clean off this part of my desk, or maybe I'll vacuum out my car and see what's in my glove compartment. Like it has this natural flow to it that is I like the number one thing that I hear when I am doing all these consultations for clients here in Los Angeles is, well, I don't even know where to start. And I'm like, great, let's start. What are you having a problem with? And that's what I want to say here. It's like, and stop me if I'm going a mile a minute. I talk quickly, so I can slow down. But thinking of a problem, a functional problem, is the best way to figure out, like if you really are stumped, is to figure out where you should get organized. Because a lot of clients are like, well, I want to organize my pantry. And I'll be like, why? And they're like, well, because it doesn't look good. And I'm like, okay, well, is it causing you issues functionally? They're like, no, it's fine. And I'm like, okay, well, what's a functional issue in your home? They're like, well, we can never get out the door on time. And I'm like, okay, why? They're like, well, because it's hard to get like my kids' socks and shoes on, and we're trying to do breakfast and we never can find our keys and we can never do this. It's like, then they're like, oh, maybe I need to organize our mudroom or our entryway to our house or a garage. So everything we need to get out of the house on time is there at the same time. Maybe that actually is going to solve a bigger problem for me, and let's start there. So if there's any problems that are happening in your home and it's frustrating for you, I would say start there. That's always a great place to start. So I have a couple examples here of real life spaces we've done for clients where I have the permission to share them. And what we did that might be a slightly different kind of solution than maybe you would think. So this is one of our clients. Her name is Kristen. She's actually a YouTuber. And the cool thing about this project is we have done a lot of videos with them. And she has ADHD. And we organized her whole house and she filmed the entire process. And then we went back 6 months later to check on it and made a couple adjustments. And so all of that is really cool if you really want to dig in deep and see how the process works from beginning to end. And they have done, their house was like pretty cluttered and messy to she and her wife. And they really have made, this was a couple years ago, and they have made massive, massive changes and like fully changed their lives and how they live for the better, which is just really empowering and can show you that if they can do it, anyone can do it. So something that when I first visited their home, Kristen was showing me all the different areas, and you'll see on the picture on the right here, it's like a kitchen counter. There's also camera set up because we were shooting part of the video when I first went to go see them. But because she shoots these videos weekly, she likes to do her hair and makeup out in the kitchen. There's better airflow. She gets to talk to her co-host and her crew. It's just like a better space for her to be. But then she always has like her computer she's looking at. You can see there's a curling iron, there's a makeup mirror, there's a bunch of shit out that her wife hates. And they're always getting into like little tiffs about it because it's like, well, then we don't have room to sit there and work, or it feels cluttered when we go to cook or whatever. So she's like, I need to move my makeup into the bathroom. I'm like, okay, well, are you ever going to actually do your makeup in the bathroom? And she's like, no. It's like, okay, so moving your makeup into the bathroom isn't actually going to solve anything because we're going to move it in there and then you're going to move it right back out, right? She's like, yeah, pretty much. I'm like, great. Let's come up with a better solution that actually is attainable. So this is like thinking about what your realistic habits are and what you think you actually will be able to stick to. So I said, why don't we get an extra large rolling cart? Let's organize all your makeup and anything you like to, do when you're out at the kitchen on this cart. And then it can live by the counter if you wanted to, if it's not bothering anyone. But then right to the left of this picture is where their bathroom is. I was like, or you can just roll it into the bathroom when you're not using it. And she was like, oh, never thought about that. We did it. It works. It still works to this day. So I think that not thinking outside of the box, someone might have been like, well, you just need to get ready in the bathroom and that is what it is. And maybe she could have made that change, but I really don't think she ever realistically was going to. I'm like, okay, so like let's change our solution to fit your own personal needs and habits. And that worked really, really well. And she had worked with organizers before, but they had tried to fit her into a box and been like, you have to live this way in order to be organized. And that just isn't true. And so this solution has worked really well for her. And it's fun to watch those videos because we came up with a ton of really fun solutions that have worked really well for them. Um, Next one, another one of my clients, Ari, when we first met her, we ended up doing her whole house over the course of like a couple years, but she had this utility closet, which had nice shelves. Like these metal shelves are really sturdy and great. But unfortunately, they weren't filling the space properly, and she was a little confused as to like why she wasn't using the closet better. And I was like, well, I think you're not using the closet that well because it's not easy to get your body in there. And like having the poles on the ground sort of visually make it feel like you can't move your body in there very easily. And it feels cluttered, so you don't want to go in. So the very simple step of removing her current shelving, we used it elsewhere in her home, putting wall-mounted shelving that was a little bit shallower in, increased visibility by like 100%, and then it was able to stay organized. So sometimes it's just like a tiny, I think she had been being like, I don't know why I can't keep it organized. I feel bad about myself. I'm like, don't feel bad about yourself. It's not the right shelving for the space. It's fine. Like, let's just change the shelving. Not a big deal. Like, it's going to work well for you moving forward. And it does. So that's two examples. I could have 1,000, but we don't have all day. So the key is to make your systems easy to maintain. So if putting things back can't be done easily, it never ever will become muscle memory and habit, and your systems will never stick. Like for example, I danced when I was in high school. I wasn't good, but I did it and I liked it. And I had this amazing choreographer and teacher who was like, if you can't pick up my choreography quickly, if it's like every time you go to turn left, you turn right, she's like, then my choreography sucks and you probably should be turning right. So she's like, if something keeps not working for you, tell me and let's change it versus you trying to fit yourself into this mold because like that's not how we're doing this. And that has stuck with me my whole life. And that's how we approach organizing. So we have a 5-step process that we always follow. And I find that in order to think outside the box, it's nice to have a few boundaries and some steps that always are concrete and stay the same. So our 5 steps are sort, clean, plan, reset, and maintain. And I'm going to go through what those are now. Okay, so sort. 1, this is you want to take everything out of the space that you are doing, right? And one tip is you want to make sure you have time allotted to be able to put it all back and go through these 5 steps, right? So don't take everything out of your garage at 5 p.m. on a Saturday when you have dinner reservations at 6. So take everything out. I want you to sort it into categories. This is going to be rapid fire, rapid style. Just so bear with me. But sorted into categories. I like to do big areas, like say it's a garage on the driveway, and I use masking tape to make boundaries. You can use a Sharpie to write what the category is, just so in your head you kind of remember. But I would just put things into big categories. Like, say you're doing the garage, I'd be like, okay, all sports goes here, all mementos go here, all, cleaning supplies go here, whatever. Then you can go through category by category and decide what needs to go and what you want to keep. So let's say you have, sometimes we'll go through a garage and we'll find, trying to think of a good example, like 6 car seats. And I'll be like, great. Do you need all these car seats? And you're like, well, we've grown out of these 3 and these 2 we need to keep or whatever. It's easy to see when you have everything from one category together, how much you have versus if you're taking things out one by one and you're like, well, I need that and I need that and I need that. But when you see it all in one category together, then you realize, oh my God, I didn't know I had so much of that. And you might be able to let things go a little bit easier. So donate, throw away if something's in really bad shape, put it on your local buy nothing group, whatever. Also, you're probably going to find things that belong in other rooms. That's another category. I like to just kind of stick those all in one thing, one spot, whether it's like you can put them in a laundry basket, you can put it in something that's in a box, whatever, and get it to the right room later. So that is step one, sort. And a few tips for that, like having a partner or a friend or hiring an organizer to come help you with this is can be super, super helpful, especially for these bigger spaces like a garage, like a basement, a whole kitchen, things like that. Um, Making sure you have enough time to start what you're finishing and just labeling your little categories with Sharpie and masking tape. We'll talk about labeling a little bit more later, but like it just is like a nice way to let your brain relax a little bit so you don't have to keep it all in your head and you don't have to remember every single category that you have spread around. Because you know what? We're not computers, we're humans, and you can't remember everything. So, step two, clean. This is really self-explanatory, but when you have everything pulled out of a space, take the time to wipe it down, to vacuum, to dust. So much dust accumulates. And on a more sort of like woo-woo level, organizing, I feel like it can really clear the energy and really clear the space in your home, whether you believe it or not. But I feel like not only is it good to give everything a nice wipe down before you put things in, but it also can help sort of like reset the slate mentally, emotionally, physically, all that kind of stuff. So, and if anything's broken, like if you're like, oh, I took everything out of my kitchen drawers and this drawer has always been broken, it's a great time to schedule a handyman, have someone come over, help you get it fixed before you put everything back in, because then it will feel even, more functional and more new. Your third step is to plan. So you have everything taken out, you have everything sorted, you've cleaned the space you're putting things back into. Now I want, before you go buy any products, you also don't even need to buy any products, but if you're going to, don't do it yet. I want you to think through what problems you want to solve and your creative solutions for how you want to fix them. And we actually have an online course that I made that goes into massive detail with this, with like journal entries and all kinds of stuff if this feels overwhelming, because this is one of the trickiest parts. And I would say that this is 90% of the service that we do as home organizers is the creative Tetris problem solving of like where things should go and ideas for how to use your space so that you can really utilize it and you don't just fall back into the same habits that got you there in the first place. But a few things to think about are, and actually before I jump into the few things to think about, I often find that clients have better instincts for this than they realize. So it's like we'll get to this planning phase with our team and with our clients and be like, we're thinking this, this, and this, and they'll be like, no, actually, I always like to make my coffee here. So can we make a coffee drawer? Or I always like to do this here. Can we do this? And usually they're right, and they know what they want instinctively. They just didn't trust their own opinions before, and that's really cool to see that happen. So think about it as a Monopoly game, right? So I used to love playing Monopoly as a kid, and your easiest to reach spaces, let's say things that are eye level, drawers, things that are really easy to get to without having to reach up high or go down really low, that's your boardwalk, that's your park place. Those should be where things that you use every single day go. So if, you use the same face wash every day, it shouldn't be low down where you have to like get on your hands and knees to get it out, right? You're never going to put it away. You're just going to leave it out on your counter. It should be somewhere where it's easy for you to get it. Boardwalk, park place, that's where you want your everyday stuff. But you want things you rarely use ever to go in the up high spaces and the low down spaces. Or maybe if you have storage in your garage or in your basement or in your attic, that's where things that rarely get used should live. Because then again, I often see people, they have their boardwalk park place spaces, and then they're like, oh, yeah, no, that's a face mask that I use once a month. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe that should go somewhere that's a little bit less accessible, and the things you use daily should go in the accessible spot. So just sort of thinking about it from that perspective can do a ton of the heavy lifting for you when you're planning out. And then also when you're planning out, then you can decide, I want to try putting this here, try putting this there. we get into reset, which is where you can bring containers in if you need it. So I don't go into detail here with the containment because that's a whole other ball game, but it's really satisfying to put things back and remembering that categories should all live together. So everything from one category lives together, and then everything needs to have a home. And whether it's a box, whether it's a drawer, whether it's a bin, whether it's a shelf, um, you just need to know, okay, these are my boundaries for that category. And if it feels like it's a big open space, like it's a big open drawer, for example, and you have, in a junk drawer, for example, like sometimes 10 different categories go in there. That's why it's nice to have little drawer dividers to keep categories together. So maybe you will want to have some products for that. But then it's like, before you go shop, in your head, okay, you can measure your drawer and you know how many categories you want to go in there. So you only need to buy exactly what you need because the home organization product world is out of control, in my opinion. And like I used to be the host of all the Container Store ads that they did for a couple years. And then I was like, you know what? They're scamming people. Not, I mean, they have great products and sorry if you love Container Store, but um we shop there all the time. But I'm like, they want you to buy the wrong stuff because they make more money that way. And then you have to go back the next year and buy more of the wrong stuff. And it drives me crazy. Like, so you can get the right stuff there, but you need to go in with a plan. You need to know what you're doing. And it drives me crazy that my organizers know 100 times more than anyone who works there about how to actually use the things. Like my people are always stopping shoppers. Like, don't get that. What are you doing? What's your plan? Step back a little bit. Buy the right stuff. Don't waste your money. You're just creating more clutter. Like the amount of people we go to their houses and they just have like a stack of like dead containers that are not returnable anymore that they're never going to use. It just drives me crazy. So, anyway, reset. Every item needs to have a home. You want to label. I know you think in your brain when you're putting things in baskets that you will remember what's in them because you know right now. I promise you, you are not going to remember. Maybe you'll remember tomorrow. Maybe you'll remember in a week. In a month, you will not remember. In a year, you will not remember. And you know who else doesn't know? Your partner who lives with you, your kids who live with you, your cleaning person, your guest who comes to stay at your house. Like there is so much value in just having a little bit of information, like little breadcrumbs you leave for yourself about what goes where. So it doesn't have to be big and gaudy. It doesn't have to be ugly. It doesn't have to be fancy. Like you can write it on a piece of paper, but reminding yourself, especially if it's not something that you can see through, what goes where will go an incredibly long way towards keeping your systems intact. So invest in a label maker. You can even, there's like the $15 ones that are old school. Like just do it. It makes a huge difference. So, and then step 5, which is the thing that most people, oh no, my picture there went away. I don't know why. This is when I was pregnant doing actually, this is like what I was thinking about my son's bedroom. These baskets, I would have no idea what was in them if they didn't have a label. And I'm so thankful months later, after I go through things, I'm like, thank God I put that label there because I would have just like, also, if there's not a label, your brain is like, well, I don't know where this goes. So I'm just going to throw it in here. And then all of a sudden, your systems start collapsing because you're breaking them. So here's how to reset. I mean, here's how to maintain. You've spent all this time problem solving, going through everything, coming up with all these systems, hopefully labeling. Now, respect yourself enough to keep the systems up. And this doesn't mean being perfect. I make reels all the time on Instagram because I actually really like doing it. And I made one recently about how an organized space shouldn't always look organized. And I know that seems like an oxymoron, but something I've really learned from having a kid now is that like the point of me organizing his stuff is so that he like will just dump everything out and he wants it to be messy and he wants to kind of play. And I let him do that versus feel like my husband, he's not here. He definitely should be diagnosed with OCD. He feels really uncomfortable by all the stuff being out and by Finn making a mess. And I'm like, this is good for his development. This is important. This is why we're organized so that he can make a big mess. And then because everything has a home, everything has a label, we can clean up in a few minutes and we're reset and we can just keep living our lives. So your home doesn't always have to look organized. Like by the end of the day, sometimes my house looks like a hot mess because I'm working, my husband's working, we're running around, things are happening, we have dogs and a baby and all this stuff. It looks a little crazy, but because we have systems and because we have labels and because we have homes for everything, we can reset every night or do a bigger reset every week if we need. So just getting into habits with yourself where you're like, you know what? This is a gift I'm giving myself tonight that I'm going to kind of reset all this stuff so it feels good when I wake up in the morning. That is a huge, huge, huge habit that will just make you live such a more organized life. And that can extend to your email inbox. It can extend to your text messages on your phone, like sort of thinking through what your future self would like and doing a little bit of a reset when it feels appropriate is a huge gift essentially. And another thing is leaving 20% free space when you're organizing. So many people organize and then like every single drawer is like stuffed to the brim. That's never going to stay because the point is to have a little bit of free space so that when new things come into your life, you have somewhere to put them. And I know it's not always fully like realistic to leave 20% free space, but life happens, right? Nothing's perfect. Nothing's ever going to work the exact way you think it's going to. So allowing for life to happen, allowing for being like, okay, well, I'm not going to organize my pantry where I literally can't fit one more box of pasta in because you know where that box of pasta is going to go when you bring it home. Invariably, it's going to go on the floor. Or it's going to go in another room, or it's going to go in your garage, or it's going to stay in the grocery bag and be on the counter. And then the clutter problem is going to build. But if you have a few extra spaces in a pantry basket or a drawer or whatever where you can put that extra food, that is going to mean that you actually take the step to put it away. And then those boundaries, if it's something starts getting a little fuller, then you can be like, okay, well, once this gets full, I maybe need to not shop for a little while, or maybe need to eat the food we have before we buy more of it. Maybe I need to donate some clothes. Maybe I need to donate some toys, whatever. Those boundaries help make the decisions for you about how much you yourself want to keep in a certain space. All right, so that's maintain. I have a few benefits of organizing. I'm sure that, a lot of this is self-explanatory, but I really think the benefits of organizing go far, far, far beyond the actual functionality of your space. I think that for me, at least, like my outer space and my inner space are reflected for each other. So my brain feels so much more relaxed and so much more creative when my space feels relaxed and feels creative, right? When I know that things are in the right place, like there's just something about it where, like, if I take the time in the morning after we've had breakfast and, the morning rush, since I work from home, if I'm not in client homes, if I take the time to like do my dishes, put things away, have my table be clear before I start working, I am just so much more productive. I enjoy my time so much more. And like ultimately, time is all we have, right? So it's like, why not do that if you can? Um, from a functional perspective, when you're organized, you can find what you need and you can operate effectively in your home. You really do save yourself. There's all kinds of, quotes about how much time everything, like, organize for 10 minutes and save yourself 2 hours. I don't know if that's true, but I do know that being able to find what you need and not spending a ton of time looking for shit all the time is a better life. Um, Relationships improve. I could do a whole talk on this. I swear we have saved so many marriages because people often come to us. Finally, it's like the straw that breaks the camel's back is one partner coming to us saying like, either my husband is so mad at me because he thinks I'm messy, or I could never get my partner to organize. So like it's driving me crazy and we're fighting about it all the time. And that is when it's nice to sometimes have a friend or an organizer or someone come in and kind of play like bad cop. And it's like therapy. It's like therapy and interior design and Tetris all in one. And organizing can really solve a lot of those little nitpicky things that can frustrate you about living with someone. And and it can work wonders. Like I have seen it happen firsthand over and over again, and it's incredible. Another one, a tidy home is better for your health if you have allergies, anything like that. It really, I have a ton of allergies, and so that's a big reason why I like to be organized. It feels better to invite people over when your house feels good. And again, like I don't think I very much feel like I never want anyone to get organized because they are ashamed and they feel like their house should look a certain way or it should be a certain way. It's not about that. It's about, do I feel good in my house? Do I like how it looks? Do I feel like I can function properly in it? And I do know that when you feel better having people over. You feel better in hosting or doing whatever you want. And a conversation that I've had with my husband many times is like we'll have people coming over and I'll be running around trying to put certain things away and he'll be like, you don't need to do that. Like they're close friends. And I'm like, you know what? I'm doing it for me because I'll feel more relaxed and calm when they're over if I do these things. And but if I'm not doing it for me, who cares, right? So anyway, it feels better having people over. And then you deserve to live in a space that feels good. Like that's at the end of the day, like you spend sometimes 2/3 of your time at your house. Sometimes some people spend 100% of their time at their house. And it's so funny to me when I hear from clients and from people online that they don't feel like they deserve for their house to feel good because it feels like it's too like, oh, I don't know, I need to do this first, or I need to save for retirement, or I need like, of course you need to do all those things, but also like you don't know how much time you have. No one knows how long they're here on this earth, and you're spending so much time in your home, and it affects you so much. It affects your emotional state, especially if you're neurodivergent. It really affects your brain. And so you deserve, if you want to feel better, if you want to enjoy your life, if you want to see like how much creativity can come out of you as a human being, you really owe it to yourself to make your space feel good to you and function well for you. So that is like the mission of why I do what I do. So a few final pieces of advice. I have talked a little longer than I thought, but then we can get to a few questions. Um, don't make your space look like everyone else's. It doesn't have to. If you're on Pinterest, you're like, well, this is what organized looks like. That's not true. It's bullshit. It's made up. Also, like most of those photos they're fucking staged. And I've worked in, production for a long time. They're shoving all the shit out of like seriously, actually, hold on. We did a consultation like a month ago for this house that is so cluttered. And they were like, oh, we rent our house out to all these brands to take pictures in. And oh my God, on Pinterest, truly every single day, because I'm on Pinterest all the time because it makes me feel good. It makes me feel creative. I see pictures of these people's house in all these ads. And I'm like, that is not what it looks like in person. They should have hired us. It's a farce. Okay. My solutions for my home are not going to look like your solutions for your home, and that's okay, right? I don't have a makeup cart because I don't need it, but Kristen does, and someone else might need a makeup caddy, and someone else might need a makeup bag. Like we all have different functions of how we need to use things, and that's beautiful. You don't need to get newer matching containers if you don't want to, or if you do want to, do it. It's your money. Who cares? But don't let it be the reason why you don't start to transform your space if you feel like you can't afford it or you don't want to do that, because it is not a requirement whatsoever. Another thing people get stuck on is things lasting forever. Like they have decision fatigue when they're making decisions about what homes they want to make for things or where they want to put something, because they're like, well, what if in 5 years I don't like where it is? Great. You might not like where it is in 5 minutes, right? You might not like where it is in in 2 weeks, in a year, and that's okay because none of this is set in stone. Nothing's set in stone. And it's supposed to change and it's supposed to morph and it's supposed to serve you now. And maybe the same systems, like when we moved into this house 7 years ago, I set up our kitchen. I would say 90% of it has stayed, but there has been some parts that I'm like, what was I thinking? Or like, I got really into bread making, or I got really into other things and we had to move some stuff around. That is normal. That is good. That is an uncomfortable feeling for a lot of people because change is scary and change is overwhelming. But I think if you can kind of relax into that and be like, nothing's forever, I can change it if I don't like it, then you will get into the flow better. Um, and that's pretty much it, guys. This is my website. This is my email. Email me if you have any questions or ever want to chat or whatever. And let's take some questions. I see there were some in the chat. Okay, let's see. Hold on. Currently looking at the chaos of my desk. Well, aren't we all? Um, let's see. You need a rolling cart. Yes, absolutely. And if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in now because I would love to answer those. Oh, storage containers are so thriftable. Yes, yes. Goodwill has, I mean, because sometimes you can use like vintage Pyrex. You could use, there's a ton of things, and also baskets. There are so many baskets at the thrift store, and it sometimes looks like way cooler when baskets don't match. So, and another good tip is Home Goods and Marshalls have a lot of really cheap containers. And you can get like a lot of the stuff that doesn't sell at the Container Store, for example, they just ship it off to Home Goods and you can get it for half off or even more. So especially if you only need like a couple of something, definitely check those stores first. Also local buy nothing groups. I'm very active on mine. I love it. And I have gotten lots of storage containers and I have given a lot of storage containers on that as well, which feels good because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're just like, dropping something at a Goodwill and it's gonna go into a mystery pit of trash. Okay. Well, does anyone have, oh, here, okay.
Got some popping up.
Oh, great. Perfect. Robin says, do you feel the containers should have organization within them, or they can be a bit of a throw space where you know you'll find what you're looking for because it's in that basket somewhere? Excellent question. And that really depends on who you are and what the item is. So, for example, let me think of a few examples. Like dog toys. We have tiny dogs, we have tiny dog toys. I just throw all those dog toys in a basket together because I guess I could like line them up or they could be in like micro baskets within it, but like the dogs don't know the difference. I don't know the difference. It's never going to stay. But other things like I do a lot of cross stitch. And I wouldn't necessarily throw all of my cross stitch stuff into one basket without a little bit of micro organization within there because all the string is going to get really gnarled up with the scissors and everything. So I have like little pouches that have different categories in there. So there's really no right or wrong answer. For people who have ADHD, for example, we have a client who had pretty severe ADHD. And she never was going to, let's say, she was never going to fold her t-shirts. She just needed to have big bins that said t-shirts. She could throw them in. And that's fine. That's not what it looks like for me, but that worked really well for her and kept them off the floor and kept categories together. And so you just have to do what you're going to realistically do, and that is perfect. Um, okay. How do you label when you're not sure how to define the category, but don't want to list out everything in a section or container? I understand my logic, but my husband doesn't without multiple reminders. What a beautiful question. I am the queen of bizarre categories. I'm always like creating. I literally have a basket in my kitchen that has a label on it and it says tortillas and chopping. And it is, it's so weird, but like it really works for me because it has all my tortilla making stuff and it has like food processor parts, whatever. Um, you kind of just have to do your best, right? And sometimes it's helpful to ask ask, your partner. Or my team is always, I don't do a lot of the organizing anymore because I'm doing more of the other stuff and being a mom. But they sometimes will call me and be like, hey, here's all the shit that's going in this bin. What would you call this? And I'll be like, hold on, hold on. And then I'll come up with something random and it just like works, right? So get creative, get weird. And if you need to list a couple things, like one of the bins in Finn's room is like carriers and swaddles. And that's sort of like, and then I can throw a couple other things, like I can throw, I don't know, like carrier accessories in there or whatever, because I know that that's all the same category. And I have another bin in there that's like health and manuals. I know that's sort of random, but it works for us. We had a limited amount of bins and and it just like kind of works. So get creative, get weird. And also, if you find that it's not working, change it. Like label tape is cheap. It takes it'll take you a minute to print out a new label if it's not working, and then you go from there. Someone said, I have a friend who has a Blady bucket. I don't think it's a bucket, but it's a spot in her kitchen for all that sort of stuff that isn't knives. Brilliant. I love it. I think I'm remembering that I had a client that had like so much hot sauce, and I think I labeled it Trevor's Hot Sauce Emporium, just being a weirdo, and they loved it, and it was great. So, yeah, I was always I make some weird categories, but that's great because that's fun, and then it makes you laugh when you see it. So,
I have a question for
yeah,
you. A
please.
little
Yeah.
bit of kind of turning the table because I do digital organization.
Ooh, I need your number.
Um, so everything you're saying about keeping your digital platform organized, and then I work with an app that is so great for neurodivergence. So my question for you is your how organized is your digital world?
Me, personally?
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so while I'm also not a typical organizer because I have ADHD, um, and I would say that I can find whatever I need within 2 to 3 minutes. Does it look organized to other people? No. Is it hurting anyone else? No. Um, could my email be more organized? I would say that like I'm so much better at tactile things. Like I love to touch things, and like that's why I love crafts and making things with my hands. I am not super techy at all. And so the digital organization does not come easily to me. Um, but I do have people on my team that are really good at that, and that I have them help me with all the digital stuff so that it gets done properly. But I mean, I might need your number because it's
Well,
it's it's so hard.
Well, I mean, and it's so true, but I mean, this was an amazing workshop, and everything that you're saying about your home space, what I say is you're when you walk into a clean and organized house, at least for me and most of us here, we can breathe a sigh of relief, right? And it's the same thing with our digital world. So I just really thank you for this seminar and
Of
all these
course.
things. I'm like, yes, yes, yes.
Oh,
So
my
it's really
pleasure. I'd
good.
love to connect more. And
Okay.
another thing I will say though is I keep my phone screen. Let me see. I keep it really organized for the most part. And like most of my things are done by color, which I know is sort of silly. But in my brain, I'm always like the purple one or the green one. And it really works for me. Because before when I had them categorized like the way the phone normally does it, I'd be like, is that productivity or is that a game? I don't remember, but I'm like, oh, it's a white one, and it's just how it works for my brain. My husband can never find anything on my phone. He's so confused by it. He's so frustrated by it. But like, it's not his phone, so who cares? Oh, my apps are also organized by rainbow. Yeah. Yeah, and like my desktop's a little bit. I had my computer at a client's house like 2 days ago, and I opened up my computer, and he was like standing right next to me, and I was like, "Don't look at him!" I'm like, "This is too embarrassing." So it is what it is. Oh my God, yes, color apps are like a second level of phone security. Exactly. If you don't get it, then it's not for you. So sorry. No, I mean, and digital organization is it's so many clients come to us for that, and we help with like some level of it, but there's too much. Like photos are such a bitch, and um, oh, you're the realest organizer I've ever heard. Thank you. I'm very different than most organizers. They're all too type A for me. And I'm like, no, thank you. And I'm definitely the messiest person on my team. It's hilarious when I used to organize. Like I'm really good at it, but I did have people like picking up after me and being like, hey, don't forget. Or like everyone on my team wears fanny packs now because I was always leaving all my shit everywhere. And they're like, put your fanny pack on, put your stuff in your fanny pack. Here's your Sharpie. Here's this. Here's this. And I'm like, okay, thanks. Um, my husband always said we have to have a kid so that he has someone else to help clean up after me, which is great. Um, so yeah, I don't know, but the photos are so hard, and I'm just like delete anything that's shitty as quickly as you can, but also like it's just going to be kind of a mess for some people because it can't be perfect. Like I had a client once who wanted me to do a photo organizing job for her, and I was helping her with it, but she wanted to go in and tag every single photo with like 20 to 40 meta tags. Like I'm not even kidding. And I was like, you could spend 5 years on this project, truly. And what good is it going to do you? Like then like what's the point? So you also have to think about like how much organization is really worth the time it's taking up, which is the same as when you're organizing and going through things, being like, is this worth the space it's taking up? And uh because there's nothing. The other thing is like I think a lot of organizers, and cut me off whenever I have to be done. A lot of organizers have this like moral sort of like high ground of like, well, you shouldn't have more than this, or like you shouldn't have like you're not organized if you have more than 5 pairs of jeans or whatever it is. And I'm like, who the fuck cares? Like if you have room for 1,000 cookbooks and you reference them and you use them and it makes your brain happy and it makes your heart happy, who cares? So it's more just about, is it worth the space it's taking up? And sometimes it's yes, and sometimes it's no. So there we go.
Uh,
Uh, One
Julie,
of
and
my
I
New
will
Year's
say,
traditions is to go through that year's photos.
oh, that's
Really
kind of
fun.
nice. Like memories and like also organizing or deleting the screenshots you don't need anymore.
There's a great
Exactly.
service called Moosh, Moothsh, that we do, where monthly you upload your favorite 10 photos and they send you these beautiful prints that are organized in little envelopes. And that's a great way for me. I go through now monthly and I'll delete the bad ones and pick the good ones. And I really look forward to it every month, actually. And we're about to do his first birthday, and I already have photos printed from the whole year, which is like has saved me so much time. So it was really worth it.
Love the
And
useful
and
apps and
Robin
things.
and Robin, since I see you have your son with you right there, something that I do now or I had done is you take all the kids' old art photos because I used to trash them all. I scan them and I put them
Mhm.
into our app, and then I don't feel guilty because they'd be like, where is whatever, and I
And
usually
you're like,
just chuck
ooh,
it.
it's not here anymore.
There's
Um,
a great
That's
service called Archive. I don't know if you've heard of that, but you get a box and you can fill it with your kids' art all year. You send it to them, they make a book out of it, and then they'll send it back or they'll just trash it.